Okay, this place needs no introduction. This is a series of videos that we're going to do here on Gettysburg Battlefield 1 and Gettysburg Battlefield 2 Facebook called Devil's Den. And this is going to be Devil's Den Part 1. This area that we're looking at here, as I scan around to the right and then back to the left, is known as Devil's Den. And this area of rocks, this cropping of rocks rather, dates back about 200 million years ago, when sheets of igneous rock were forced up through the Earth's crust and developed into this granular dia-based sill that we call the Gettysburg sill. Now the battle that was fought in this area on July 2nd of 1863, and we hear a lot about the battle around Devil's Den, but the battle was basically an effort by Confederate forces to drive the Federal Army out of what this Gettysburg sill that we call. It was an effort by the Confederate Army to drive Union or Federal troops away from this igneous rock that's 200 million years old. In this series, we're going to take a look at the history of the Devil's Den. We're going to look into the Battle of Gettysburg, specifically that was fought here on July 2nd, 1863. And we're basically going to do an in-depth tour of the rocks, inside the rocks and the caves, the actual spot that we call the Devil's Den, and then just famous rocks, rock carvings, and little secrets of the battlefield that can be found here in this area. Again, this series is probably going to be one of our more popular and numerous series, and we're going to start it right here off with Devil's Den Part 1 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Part 2 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And in Part 1, we took a look back at the history of the den and how it was formed about 200 million years ago. On Part 2 here, we're going to look back about 1,000 years ago and talk about the Native American Indians. Now, Native American Indians used this whole area in this area of Devil's Den and beyond as their hunting grounds about 1,000 years ago. There have been people that have actually found Indian artifacts from a couple different Indian tribes in this area. Not only that suggested both the hunting of the area, but also that a Indian battle most likely took place in the area of Devil's Den, in the same area that Union and Confederate troops clashed once again on July the 2nd, 1863, casting this place into immortality. So, long before the Battle of Gettysburg, during the American Civil War, there was also a Indian battle fought here, and of course there's no way that we can know the exact reason a battle may have been fought. However, it has also been suggested that because of the way the rocks have caves, Indians slept in caves. They made their homes in different rocks that had caves, such as the wind caves that used to sit out by McAllister's Mill. Also, it may have been used as some type of a Indian temple or place of worship because of its strange look to it. So again, this has been the Indian occupation, hunting grounds, and battle around 1,000 years ago here on Devil's Den Part 2 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Early landowners in modern times of the area around Devil's Den. Now, a man named Jacob Sherfy owned the ground that today is Devil's Den from around 1805 to the year of 1842. Catherine Sherfy from 1842 to 1844. And then it appears that the ground went unowned to some degree until the next year when Jacob Benner owned the property in 1845. Now, during the Benner ownership, the land was subdivided and sold off, and that includes a 47-acre tract of land in the Devil's Den area, which was later transferred to John Houck on March the 29th, 1848. Now, McCreary and Houck owned a brickyard in town, and that brickyard sat on a road that no longer exists called the Millertown Road. Houck bought out McCreary on April the 5th of 1861. And it's important to mention that because when Houck overtook and bought out McCreary, this whole area in 1861 was then known as Houck's Ridge. And Houck's Ridge is probably the most modern name pre-existing the Battle of Gettysburg. Before the Battle of Gettysburg, just before the Battle of Gettysburg, if you would have come to this place, it would not have been called Devil's Den. Devil's Den would be a name that would be popularized later on after the battle. This area would have been known as Houck's Ridge. So in part one, we talked about the history of the den being formed 200 million years ago. In part two, we took a look at how Devil's Den was inhabited by Indians, used as Indian hunting grounds, maybe a temple, and there may have been a battle over the ground here. And then here in part three, we're looking at more modern history of the ground, starting around the year 1800 and leading up to the Civil War in 1861. And again, when Houck bought out McCreary's share in this area, 47 acres of this area, on April the 5th, 1861, this became known as Houck's Ridge. This has been the Devil's Den Part 3 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. 4 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And as we stand here and look at the den, we're going to turn behind us and we're going to look at Plum Run. Now, Plum Run runs right along these rocks here from the bridge near the parking lot all the way down and around to the south side, and then it cuts over eastward. We're going to talk about this area of Devil's Den named Plum Run. Now, in the year 1813, this was known as John Lynn's Run. An 1821 map of Adams County has it listed as Rock's Run, and it's very easy to understand why it may have been called Rock's Run. If you look really close here, the run actually flows under these boulders and large rocks here, which sit in today what we know as the slaughter pen. In 1832, 1848, and 1850, maps of Pennsylvania call this Bear Run, most likely due to the bears that inhabited this area just off of the Round Tops. In 1863, E.B. Cope, surveying the land, called this Plum Run, which we know it as today. Also in 1864, John Pauschatter, when he did his isometrical map, also called this Plum Run. And then finally in 1873, when the first guide to the Gettysburg battlefield was written, it was also called Plum Run, and that is the name that stuck here for this run that goes just to the southeast of Devil's Den. So this portion of this video on our series here at Devil's Den focuses on the history of Plum Run and the names that it held from as far back as we can trace. This has been the Devil's Den Part 4, Plum Run, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Devil's Den that sits here right in front of the parking area here at Devil's Den. And we're going to talk a little bit about where Devil's Den got its name. One of the earliest mentions of the name Devil's Den from what we called Houck's Ridge in Part 3 would have been penned by a man named Francis Stoke. He was a soldier, rather, that was stationed at Camp Letterman. We did a video series on Camp Letterman that you'll want to go back and watch so you can get an idea of where Camp Letterman was. He wrote his brother on October the 26th, 1863. And he wrote, as though native in some wild freak had forgotten herself and piled great rocks in mad confusion together. This place is known as Devil's Den. And of course, devil was also the name of a large Pennsylvania black snake that had inhabited this area and was seen by local residents prior to the Battle of Gettysburg. But the coining of the name Devil's Den can go back to that letter written on October the 26th, 1863 by a man named Francis M. Stahl, as he wrote a letter about the confusing nature and the strange nature of these large cropping of rocks that sit here in what we call the Gettysburg Sill today. Of course, others who had fought here and seen the intense struggle over this rocky ground also had coined the name Devil's Den. Early guides such as John Batchelder was also one to have known to use the name Devil's Den very early and just months and years after the actual Battle of Gettysburg. And of course, Devil's Den is the name that stuck finally with this place, and is the name that this place will forever be known as. This has been Devil's Den, Part 5, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Part 6 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And today we're going to talk about the name Devil's Den. When the term Devil's Den is used, often it's used to describe this entire area of rocks that we've been looking at in the first 5 parts. As we continue our tour through Devil's Den, however, we're going to talk about the actual Devil's Den and what it was intended to be. First, before I do that, I want to go over here and we're going to look at this rock here that seems to have a piece missing out of it. And that rock is actually right over here. It actually was struck by lightning, fell on the ground in the late 1800s. Today this is called the Devil's Bath because it always seems to have a pool of water in it most of the year. Now, the name Devil's Den, though attributed to the entire body of rocks, was actually meant to be the spring at Devil's Den, or the cave in which the snake, the black snake, made its den in the rocks. And that would be right over here. So if you want to get technical, the area that we call Devil's Den would be here in this cave. And we're going to go ahead and take a walk into the Devil's Den, in the cave of rocks. And you'll have to bear with me because these spaces can be very confined. And again, during the Battle of Gettysburg in July of 1863, many of the bodies that couldn't be buried on the field were simply dumped into this area here that we are standing in here. And throughout Devil's Den, there are small caves that lead all the way through the den. And you can see outside here, and then down here there's another cave. And again, if you'll bear with me, we'll climb through. And again, exits and more caves. Let's proceed here, and again, bear with me as I crawl into these very tight spots here in the underneath the massive boulders of Devil's Den. And if you're small enough or have the energy, you can climb all throughout the Devil's Den and many more caves than what we've done here. Kids seem to find enjoyment in doing just that. And as you'll see as we walk out here, we'll come back again to the outside area of Devil's Den. We've looked at in this part, climbing through some of the cavernous areas and caves of Devil's Den. And that's our next part on this tour. As we go parts 7 through 10, we're going to take a look at some of the historical action by some troops here on July 2nd, 1863. This has been Devil's Den Part 6 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.